How is Nintendo demolishing the rest of the gaming industry with what is essentially a 10-year-old Android tablet? And how, after one of their worst home consoles ever in the Wii U, did Nintendo follow it up with what I will argue is their best system ever? And you know what? I'd even say potentially the greatest console ever. Now, I know what you're saying. Mark, you own stock in Nintendo. You're clearly a Nintendo fanboy. Or, Mark, you have man breasts. Why? But here's the thing, folks. This deep dive we're about to take is going to make all of those points pointless. So buckle up and get ready for the greatest argument ever. But first, I want to level set with just how great the Switch has been for Nintendo's business so far. When you look at Nintendo's business profits from 1981, the year they entered the gaming business, to 2016, they made a net profit of $15.3 billion US. Now, since 2017, whenever the Switch was launched, and to the end of the 2024 fiscal year, they brought in a whopping $16.6 billion US. That means in 7 years, Nintendo surpassed the amount of profit they made in the previous 36 years combined. I mean, that is absolutely insane. And I know some of you are going to be asking, Mark, what about inflation? Games are more expensive. Eggs are more expensive. Gas is more expensive. Your mom is more expensive. Whoa. Kidding. She's still pretty cheap. But even when you adjust for inflation, the Switch generation still surpasses the previous gaming years of Nintendo, the past 36 years, at $17.4 billion US to $17.1 billion US. It's a lot closer, but it still just ekes on by. You know, it's just like, oh, these last 7 years, we're gonna just get a little bit of, you know what I mean? It's still significant. That means in 7 years, they made more money than they made in the past 36 years combined, even if you adjust for inflation. That just blows my mind. Still, this is just the financial success, though. I would argue, and many of you would as well, that the nature of gaming, given it, profit alone isn't a significant signifier about how great a specific piece of hardware is to play games on. I mean, we all remember the Dreamcast. It was a failure financially, but it had some great games, and it was a fantastic time. So how else could you measure a gaming console? Well, it's in the name. Games. And the Switch has games. In fact, it has 9 console exclusives that have already sold over 20 million units, one of which currently stands as the 6th best-selling game of all time ever, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, at 70.4 million units sold. But perhaps the most astonishing stat is this. The Switch has 21 games with over 10 million copies or more sold, which is more than any other console ever, by a long shot. The next closest competitor is the Xbox 360 with 11 total. The Switch has 21, second place has 11, the DS with 10, the Wii with 9, noticing a trend there, the PS4 with 9, and the 3DS with 7. But again, let's just not talk about sales numbers. How good are the games? Well, if we take a look at the library as a whole, meaning not just current gen releases, but ports and games brought over via Nintendo Switch Online, 44% of the top 25 games of all time, according to Metacritic, are on the Switch. And 40% of the top 50 games of all time are currently playable in the Switch, and 33% of the top 100 games of all time are on the Switch. And many of those are Switch exclusives that have launched since 2017, because I know you PC gamers out there, which I am one of them, are going to be like, well, we can play everything. Great for you. Not everyone has like $2,000. No one. I mean, some people. I had that money, but not everyone has that money. But what about just the slew of console exclusives on the Switch alone? The Switch has an insane amount of new releases for some of Nintendo's best classic IPs. We got 3 new Kirby games, 3 new Zelda games, and a ton of Zelda ports. A boatload of Mario sports games, which, being honest, that's probably the weakest spot in the lineup yet in terms of quality of the sports games. But still, I think Mario Tennis Aces is great. Ports of classic Mario RPGs like Paper Mario Thousand Year Door and Super Mario RPG Remake, 3 new Metroid games, a ton of Mario games, including 2 of my favorite of recent memory in Mario Wonder and Odyssey, 10 plus Pokemon games, 2 WarioWare games, and a ton of other first, second, and third-party exclusives like Fire Emblem, Xenoblade, Tokyo Mirage, Bayonetta 3 and Origins, Astral Chain, and so much more. It's insane. So how is this? How could one console have so many great games? And it's actually a simple answer. The Switch essentially combined what historically would have been 2 separate libraries for Nintendo: portable and home console. No longer is there a Game Boy and a Super Nintendo library, or a Game Boy Advance and a GameCube library, or a Wii and a DS and 3DS and so forth. Those two separate segments and developmental efforts became one with the Switch. And this simple consolidation, I think, led to a lot of brilliant innovation and offerings for gamers everywhere. And what's crazy is just when you think, okay, the Switch is almost done, we're moving on, the second half of 2024 and early 2025 seem pretty much empty, boom, we got the most recent Nintendo Direct, and we're seeing the return of the legendary Mario & Luigi series, another brand new Zelda game, Metroid Prime 4. It's all looking strong, and some more epic ports and remakes are on the way. Again, it is insane. I almost feel like I'm drowning in games. I'm drowning. So even if you compared the Switch to the Wii, which as of now, the Switch beats in every category, but the Wii is one of those other cultural touch points we could look at and say, hey, it truly reached a new zeitgeist. I mean, my great-grandmother was playing Wii Bowling. The Switch is still going strong right now. It's almost done, and we still have a ton of great games to look forward to. The Wii, on the other hand, well, it existed. That's kind of all I can say. I mean, the Wii fell off stronger than a parachute with a failed ripcord. Okay? And then, well, it was followed by the Wii U, which had some good games, but was a failure all around. And there's reasons for that have been explored exhaustingly, so I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus next on why I think Nintendo, through good times and bad times, the Wii U and the Virtual Boy, continues to simply just win. And that comes down to a very specific phrase that has manifested through the majority of Nintendo's hardware and software since the beginning. And that phrase is lateral thinking with weather technology, a term coined by Gunpei Yokoi, maker of the Game & Watch and eventually the Game Boy, which ultimately this phrase means instead of pushing for the latest and greatest in hardware technology, Nintendo would prefer to use something more affordable and proven and leverage it in a new and innovative way. Again, if we look at the Game Boy, it essentially had a watch screen. It had a very simple non-colored LCD screen. That's it. And sure, the Game Gear had a fully colored screen, as did the Atari Lynx, but they all cost a lot more and they all failed in the critical part of having innovative and fun games. The Game Gear was discontinued after 7 years and the Game Boy 14 years. It was selling for 14 years. I mean, I had to look that up myself because I wasn't sure. I was like, that was 1989 to 2003. 14 years. And this philosophy is evident in the Wii, the DS, and the Switch. I mean, for the Wii, it was taking innovative but proven accelerometer technology and packaging it with basically a GameCube, maybe a little bit better, but you know, it offered an innovative way for people to play, for everyone. Same as the DS. The DS took touchscreens, which were proven for a few years now thanks to Palm Pilots and other early mobile devices, and pretty much tacked it onto an N64, again, offering a simple, innovative way to play. And all of these devices I'm mentioning did one critical thing. It expanded the gaming market. The Wii, heck, again, I know grandparents who still play Wii Bowling. The DS, girls were interested in the Nintendogs and grandparents were interested in Brain Age. And what's most critical is they offered simple ways for the gamer to interact with the medium in general. And then comes the Switch. Smartphones were getting better and better. NVIDIA was working on some pretty nice system-on-a-chips with their Tegra processors, and Nintendo says, hey, let's release an affordable hybrid system. Let's not worry about groundbreaking 4K graphics because at the time, less than 44% of consumers had a 4K TV, but let's take all of our learnings from the past in terms of simple ways to play and allow players to play anywhere. Let's just combine our markets. Right in the one. You hear that sound? That's the sound that whenever the handheld and the home went together. That's it. The idea of lateral thinking with weather technology enables Nintendo to achieve all of this, and the most important aspect simply being affordable. Gaming is primarily an activity for kids first and foremost, and Nintendo focuses on that. And when you have kids wanting a brand new gaming device, whether it's an iPad, a PS5, or an Xbox, or a PC, well, Nintendo's prices beat all of those. If you want to grow your gaming market and create new gamers, target the kids. It's also a pro for the developers as well. Oftentimes when Sony or Xbox releases a new dev kit, much of the effort from the developers is spent thinking about simply how to utilize the new hardware. So processors, anybody? But when you have something people are familiar with and they don't have to branch off into some new fidelity fetish approach to appearance, like how do we put more ray tracing in this game? They can just focus on making a fun game. And again, that matters. It's the most important thing. Period. Time after time, we see this. That game doesn't have 60 frames per second, but it's fun and it's selling well. Listen, I like a game to be fast and smooth, but if it's fun, people are going to enjoy it. In fact, all of this philosophy, I think, boils down to this point made by the former president Iwata. Quote, "In the end, if the next generation of consoles only represents beefed up technology, there will not be much of a future. Video games are meant to be just one thing: fun for everyone." That is an absolute mic drop moment. I think we all miss Iwata. And when AAA gaming is pushing more and more of the same thing and costing more, also seeming less innovative in general, here's the Switch, which is again essentially a 10-year-old Android tablet saying, hey, play here. It's fun. It's cozy. It gets a little weird too. But it's a good time. So all of this, the fact that it has a ton of great games, it has a giant library of classics and new releases exclusive to the platform, and offers a very unique, innovative way to play everywhere, plus it's affordable, all of this are many of the reasons why I believe the Switch is not only the greatest Nintendo console of all time, but perhaps the greatest console of all time, period. Now, what about the future? Everyone's wondering if traditional consoles will stay around, and honestly, I do believe as much as Sony and Xbox are pushing cloud-based gaming and same day and date releases with PC, that they still plan to have a hardware business in the future. But what about the Switch's successor? How will that play into everything? Well, from what we know, the Switch 2 is supposed to be a conservative iteration on its predecessor, and that tells me we shouldn't expect anything truly different like when the GameCube went to the Wii, but rather a very similar hybrid device. Maybe there will be a new gimmick to it, but it's going to be a hybrid system, and I'll say now, it's going to have backwards capability. The library is too huge, too successful, and too important for Nintendo to leave it behind. But these are just my thoughts, and as I always say to my wife, I am often wrong, but always confident. So let me know your thoughts below, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and as always, happy gaming.